Welcome back to Mike's Archers YouTube, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new 2020 lineup from Rambo Bike. They've got some new bikes. They've redesigned all their old bikes from 2019, and then they've got a new bike that we're going to take a look at today that's all-wheel drive. So both wheels are pulling, so we'll get to that one here in just a second. But at the beginning here, we're going to start with the new 750XC. And the 750XC is a bike we put together here just today to test drive, and it's got some really cool features on it. All the new motors on all these new bikes for 2020, they're using name brand parts. And they're doing a 750 watt Bafang motor on the 750XC. Now this bike does have a 3-speed internal drive hub in the back, so you do have that adjustable speed in the hub, but it's not going to have your sprocket and your derailleur hanging down. So all that's internal on that 3-speed. Now this new bike has also got an LG battery, so they're using some higher grade battery components on all these new bikes. The 750XC is going to come with a 48 volt 10.4 amp hour LG battery here on the frame. The other thing they did on these bikes is they went to Logan brakes. So they got a 2-piston hydraulic brake on these bikes, and then the 4-inch Kenda tires up front and on the back here. So riding on your hydraulic shocks on this bike. So the hydraulic shocks are going to allow you to adjust what you've got going on here as far as the ride of that bike. If you're a bigger guy, a heavier guy, you can stiffen those up. If you know you got easy terrain to ride, you don't need a lot of compression on that shock, you can soften those up for a little better ride as well. The range on this bike is going to be approximately 19 miles. Now that does depend on how you ride this bike. You can definitely get a longer range ride out of it, but that is just how you ride it. If you're doing a lot of pedaling, you're going to get a whole lot further. But 19 miles is the range they're estimating on this bike if you just throttle all the time and ride it and don't actually pedal. One of the next features that they did, the standover height on this bike is kind of in the middle on some of these bikes that we're looking at today. It's got a 29-inch standover height, and all these bikes will be a 19-inch frame that they built on. Now you can buy the shorter frame bikes. Those are available. If you've got somebody that's a much shorter stature, or a lady, or one of your kids or something, they do make some smaller frame bikes with less standover, but all their standard models are on a 19-inch frame with 29-inch standover on this one. It does have 5 power levels, so as most of their bikes have in the past, that hasn't really changed with the computer up front and the amount of power that you're getting from that motor. You're going to have 5 power levels up here at your control. So one of the other features we kind of looked at on these bikes, and this is going to be true across all of them, you get a 31-inch handlebar width on these bikes. Not bad, but a fairly wide stance, very comfortable to ride. Maybe a little tough getting in between trees and whatnot, but if you're in some really tight spaces. But overall, just a nice width on the handlebars. And we looked at the ground clearance on some of these bikes as well. All the pedal height across the board is going to be 5.5 inches on all these bikes. So if you've got your pedal in a complete down position, which is frankly not a good way to ride, but if you catch yourself there, it's 5.5 inches. And on this bike, you've got the lowest ground clearance to that middle of that hub is 10 inches. So I know we looked at some bikes here in the older models, and they had a much lower ground clearance. So that's something Rambo has certainly done. They have brought the ground clearance up on these bikes, which I like. I'm a taller guy. It helps me get through the woods a little better, and if you do mess up and lean in one direction or the other, you're not going to catch a pedal as easily, and you're going to be able to get over some logs and rocks and things and not bang the bottom of that hub. The next redesigned bike we want to look at for Rambo is the new 750XPC. Now what they did with this bike is it's kind of a mid-level bike, and it is a 750 watt motor as well. Still using that Bafang high torque motor on this one, so a little better motor on this one to give you a little more torque, a little more power taken off and things, but still a total of 750 watts. Now the next upgrade you have on this bike is a 5-speed internal gear change. So again, on this back hub, you do not have a derailleur or anything to get hung up and stuff, but you do have 5-speed of adjustment in that back hub. From there, they used a high-quality battery on this one as well. Now they went to a Panasonic battery on this bike, and it's going to be a 48-volt, 11.6 amp hour battery on this bike. And frankly, these higher grade components are somewhat of a differentiator here for Rambo, using some name brand parts rather than those cheap Chinese knockoffs that you're seeing on some of the lower end bikes and the no-name bikes out there that you're getting into. The next thing they put on this bike was THROTTLE 2-piston hydraulic brakes. So we've also got hydraulic brakes on this one, double piston. Great stopping power on all these bikes. If you get in a situation where you're going too fast, these things are going to bring you to a halt really quick. Now they went to the Maxxis tire, which is a little better grade tire on this bike. So you got a 4-inch Maxxis tire, and then you've got adjustable air shocks on the forks up front. So again, fully adjustable there. You can lock them out as well if you want a really stiff ride, but you've got adjustable air shocks there on this frame. The range is a little better on the 750XPC. It's got about a 20-mile range, and again, keep in mind that's depending on how you ride it. You know, if you're in really hilly territory, it's going to suck that battery a little harder rather than being in flat territory. And if you ride and pedal a lot, then you're going to get a lot more range out of that. But still, a really good range on this bike. The standover height on this bike is going to be 30 inches, so it's a little bit higher, about an inch higher than the 750XC, but still on a 19-inch frame on that adult side of things. So the pedal height, I think we talked about it, across these are 5.5 inches, so plenty of ground clearance there. This one does have, the hub hangs just a little bit lower with the way that mid-drive is put into this. It's at about 9.25 inches, but there's about a 1/2 inch variance across all these 3 bikes, and really not bad at all. So the power levels up front, as always, are 5 power levels on the computer, which gives you plenty of power, plenty of torque. You know, if you get this bike going top speed and just rolling with it, depending on how hard you pedal and how hard you ride, you can probably reach speeds 20 plus miles an hour, which is frankly faster than you probably need to be going through the woods or the fields on a bicycle. But you can definitely get these bikes up to some great speeds with those top power levels, and plenty of torque there to get you up the steepest hills no matter where you're at. We've been riding them today, kind of taking them through. We've got a little trail here at the shop that we ride on, and it's got some really steep hills on it, and we were able to bring these bikes up those hills and not even touch the pedals if we wanted to. You could run that up to the highest speed level and power level, and it would pull you right up these hills here in southern Ohio without any problem. You know, obviously if you stand and pedal, you get a little better comfortable ride and a little more balance, but these things will take you anywhere you really want to go. Now the last bike we want to look at here from Rambo for 2020 is the new 500X2WD. Now the name, I think, kind of explains it all. It is 2-wheel drive. Now think of that like your 4-wheel drive truck versus your 2-wheel drive truck. So this bike is pretty unique to the market. It's new this year. One of the first companies, I believe, to come out with a 2-wheel drive bike. So this front tire is pulling as well as your back tire. So what Rambo did here was they went to a hub drive motor. So instead of it being your mid-drive like you see on most everybody else's bike, including their own, to get 2-wheel drive, they had to go to 2 500-watt motors. Now, what that did is now you've got 500 watts on the front tire and 500 watts on the back tire being driven by 2 separate hubs that the computer's controlling simultaneously and keeping them at the same speed. So what that allowed them to do was, with these Bafang motors on the front and back, is to give you a lot more torque at a 500-watt power range. So as you've seen, most all their other entry-level bikes and even some of their high-end bikes are all 750 watts, and then you can get 1,000-watt bikes as well. This bike stays trail legal with 500 watts because they base it on a single motor measurement. And so because you have 500 on the back and front, it does not make it a 1,000-watt bike. It just gives you 500 watts on both ends. So that's a little something unique about this bike that's going to keep it trail legal in most all states that have those laws in place. Now, obviously, keep up with your local laws. Those are constantly changing. The DNR and a lot of other folks are really trying to keep up, and the laws are changing on these e-bikes, even in national parks and different things like that where you can ride them. But this bike should come in on the power ratings underneath everything that's out there, and should be, fit underneath the minimums that are going to be a problem if you get some of those higher end bikes. Now, this bike on these motors, because of the way it runs with those 2 separate hub motors, it is a single speed bike. So you don't have those extra speeds, but you do still have those 5 power settings up front. Trust me, it's got plenty of torque. When we were bringing it up the hills, the one thing I noticed was that front tire pulling. When you stand up on a hill climb or something like that, you always lose traction in the back because your weight's now shifted more to the front tire. Well, now that front tire is pulling you up the hill, and you're still getting pull from the back tire as well. So everything's working together to give you a lot more power and a lot more torque, even though you're only a 500-watt motor on this bike. So they did use some higher grade batteries on this, and they put a Samsung 48-volt, 14.5 amp hour battery on this bike. So again, some great components there with some high grade batteries that are going to last a really long time. Now they did use hydraulic brakes as they have on the other ones. So Logan 2-piston hydraulic brakes front and back on this bike to give you plenty of stopping power. And you're going to want that, especially with the front tire pulling. It's just a little different feel when you're riding. The next thing they did on this bike that's a little different from some of their others is they put a custom chain on this bike. It's a heavier duty, wider chain because they've got both wheels pulling to give it plenty of durability, plenty of strength in that chain. They beefed that chain up on this bike over some of their others. Still got your 4-inch Maxxis tires on there, and still has the air shock ride up front that's fully adjustable to you how you want to ride. Now the range on this bike is going to come in just with all the rest of their upper end bikes. 20 miles is what they're ranging it at, and you can certainly get more than that. Now the standover height on this bike's a little shorter than the other ones. It's at about 28 inches. I don't know that that's really going to be something you see or has much effect on you, and it's still on a 19-inch frame. So the standover height's just a little shorter on this bike than the others. Now the 5 power levels that we talked about here are still going to give you tons of torque out of this bike and do amazing things that are going to get you up any hill climb you want to, take any deer out of the woods that you want to put in the carts and things like that. It's an amazing bike to ride. And one of the things we did want to talk about when you're riding, if you decide to go with one of these 2-wheel drive bikes, the main thing you're going to feel is it's a little different to ride. With that front tire pulling, as you know, if you get on pavement with a 4-wheel drive truck, it wants to fight against itself a little bit. I don't know that it's going to cause you any problems or cause you to wreck or anything like that, because we didn't get any feeling of that. But it is a different feel when you take a turn. You're going to want to lean it a little different, maybe take it a little wider turn, because that front wheel is pulling. And if you jerk that thing sideways real fast to make a really tight turn, that front wheel is going to run you hard left or hard right while that back wheel is still pushing you forward. So keep that in mind. As with any of these bikes, spend some time on them. Ride them, get used to them before you take them in the woods so that you got a real comfortable feel for how these bikes react in every situation so that you don't cause yourself any injury. Now we did look at the height on this bike, and it falls right in there with the other bikes. It's got 9 3/4 inch of ground clearance there on the center sprocket. Now it doesn't have the mid-drive hub hanging down, so all you're dealing with there is the sprocket on this one. So it's just about 9 3/4 inches, so almost 10 inches. And the pedal height is still 5.5 on this one. So you got plenty of ground clearance, and we did like seeing that out of the new 2020 lineup here, that they had raised that ground clearance on their bikes from what we had seen in the past. So we're going to talk a little bit about the accessories on some of these bikes. And in my opinion, if you've looked at any of the accessory lineups, or if you've already owned one of the Rambo bikes, they probably have the most extensive lineup of accessories of any other bike company. Just a ton of options, a ton of things that you can put on these bikes to make your ride more enjoyable, your time in the woods more enjoyable, and allow you to do whatever it is you want to do, from hanging tree stands to getting your buck out of the woods. They're going to have a complete set of accessories that are going to help you do all those things. So starting at the front of the bike here, they give you 2 headlight options, and we as hunters know that going in and out of the woods, you're going to go in before daylight, come out after dark, and if you're riding this bike on some trails, getting in and out, the main thing you want to be able to do is see where you're going and what's going on. So they make the new Ultra Bright, that's new for this year, that is allowed to be put on any of their bikes. So all these accessories will fit any model of bike that they have. It'll even fit on some other folks' bikes as well if you finagle them a little bit. But they also have the Super Bright headlight, and that one's been around for a few years. And the other option that's not on one of these bikes is they actually make a cell phone pouch. So there's an extra pouch that fits up front here that'll hold your cell phone and still allow you to use it and see it. So as you work your way back the bike, one of the new accessories they came out with this year was the Cloud 9 seat. And I think this is going to be an awesome addition to whatever they've got. You know, if you've had a bike for a few years, you may want to take a look at one of these seats, because it's a very heavy cushion seat, going to make a very comfortable ride for you. They make a couple different mud fenders. So you got a front fender and a rear fender. You can see a rear fender on that one. The fender's underneath here. But those are just going to be some mud fenders to keep the mud from flying up on you. I thoroughly recommend that if you're not looking at one of the packages that we have online that comes with that, make sure you get an extra set of those for any of your bikes. It's just going to make a better ride, keep mud from flying up in your face and up your pack and everything else. It's just a great accessory that, frankly, every bike should have. From there, we've got pannier bags. So that's one of the great things. They make a half bag or a full bag. You can go either direction. And then obviously you got to have the racks. So the racks are a pretty important component. Underneath these is going to be your rear rack, and they make a front rack as well. It's a little basket rack that fits on the front. But this allows you to hook up a lot of accessories. This back rack is another one of those things that, frankly, if you own one of these bikes, I think it's a must-have accessory is the back rack. So once you put that on there, it's going to allow you to attach these pannier bags. They make a bow scabbard, a gun scabbard that's going to hold up your weapon on the way in to kind of keep it up out of the way of everything. And then the other thing the back rack does for you is it's going to allow you to attach some trailer accessories. And frankly, Rambo's got some accessories that make these bikes, frankly, a 365 year-round bike that you can use all year. This is the dual-wheeled cart. This is a great cart that can be used for hauling out deer, put tree stands on it if you're hanging stands in the summer. Like I said, bring your deer out on it, put your buddy on it if you want to. You can use this trailer for a lot of stuff. But they make a couple others. They make a fishing cart that allows you to put a cooler and rod holders on it. So you can go fishing with this thing in the summer. They make a kayak trailer for this thing, which allows you, obviously, if you're a kayak person that's on the water a lot, you could go to some lakes, back in a little bit, even fish or bow fish back in some backwater or some small lakes back on some trails that most guys can't get to. And they also make a single wheel trailer as well. If you want that really narrow profile to get through the woods, they make a single wheel trailer. And then, of course, they make the bike hauler, so that'll fit in any reese hitch on any vehicle. And frankly, that's a great accessory as well. If you're going to be, hauling this bike around, going different places, putting it on the back of the truck is a great way to haul it. And having that bike hauler, and if you got a buddy that's got one that's going to haul two bikes as well. They do make a tailgate cover as well, so there's a lot of accessories there to allow you to haul these bikes in a lot of different manners to get them to wherever you need to be, whether you're fishing, hunting, kayaking, whatever it is you're doing. Make sure you add some accessories to these bikes to make them a whole lot more functional and a whole lot more enjoyable to use. Thanks for tuning in to Mike's Archery once again. As always, hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell notification, and leave us some comments in the comment section below. We always love to hear what our customers have to say. Check us out on social media and give us some likes on there as well.